The Boston 4th of July celebration is unrivaled. It's totally unique. I've said before that it's not so much a concert as a sociological phenomenon. The audience that comes out and hears that concert live, 400, 500, 550,000 people, is larger than the aggregate audience that any other orchestra plays for in the entire year, if you add it all up. For so many people across the country, what defines the Boston Pops is the 4th of July. In fact, I talk to people and they say, well, what do you guys do when it's not the 4th of July? And well, I said, we actually play, 150 concerts a year or so here, and they go, really? Because that's so iconic. You think Boston Pops, you think 4th of July, you think Boston Pops and fireworks. And, that's, for us, if walking the walk as America's orchestra, what better thing than to be front and center on America's holiday? So I grew up listening to the same stuff that every high school kid around 1975 or so listened to. I had Queen albums, and I had Stones albums, and Led Zeppelin and that sort of thing, and the kind of things that everybody listened to in the mid 1970s. So, and then I played in jazz ensemble, dabbled in jazz, played for the school musicals, eventually ended up conducting the school musicals in high school. Really developed a love of Broadway. Also, growing up just about 100 miles north of New York City, I had a chance to go down and see some great shows when I was still at kind of a formative age. So I kind of grew up loving all of that, and who knew that I'd end up in a job where you use all of that. Well, when I showed up at the Boston Pops, I was replacing somebody who is fully 25 years my senior. So there was a little bit of that who's the kid sort of thing. What people seem to not remember is the iconic conductor of the Boston Pops, Arthur Fiedler, the man whose memory none of us will ever quite chase away, also joined the Pops when he was 35. I think I was about 3 months younger than he was. I think they were really looking at the Pops in the mid-1990s to go a different direction and to make the orchestra overtly reach out to a younger generation, at least to a strongly baby boomer sort of generation. That's the thing about the Pops. It's this grand old tradition. We've been around since 1885, but it's always in the process of renewal. In a way, it has to stay more of cutting edge. There's more of that work involved than there is in a more traditional classical symphonic sort of setting. We play that music too, but we also have to be, as part of our charter, to be somewhat reflective of the time we're in. One thing we've been doing very overtly in the last few years is something called Edgefest, where we have specifically looked for people whom you would never think of as being apt soloists, the bands like My Morning Jacket and Guster, solo artists this year like Amanda Palmer of Dresden Dolls, Natalie Merchant of 10,000 Maniacs. In fact, that's not going for a baby boomer generation, that's going for a generation younger than that. When you were hearing pop songs top of the charts in the mid-1950s, you were hearing these lush Nelson Riddle orchestrations, which of course fit the orchestra like a glove. So you have to be a little more inventive. You can't just take the song and, play it in a kind of a big squishy orchestral arrangement, because everybody would rather hear the original. You don't want Stairway to Heaven played by the Boston Pops Orchestra. So what you do instead is you look for things that do work. World music sounds and that sort of thing, the incredible tonal palette of the orchestra, all of those things are between them create a sound that can really has a cross-generational appeal. Well, I think these days any classical musician who will tell you that they're above selling their art form is unspeakably arrogant and deluded and probably unemployed, with the exception of a couple of very, very prominent and famous ones. These days, it's not why I'm in the business. That having been said, if you believe in your product, if you really think that this is the most wonderful, highest level of human expression, then you should be willing to tell people about it. And not only should you be willing to, you should be good at telling people about it, because that's Conductor is a communicator. Conductor communicates with the orchestra. The conductor is a conduit that gets the orchestra to communicate with itself, basically. It's a way of thinking as on one side of the stage that you actually hear what's going on the other side of the stage, even if there are 80 other musicians blaring between the two of you. And a conductor is also the intercessor and the communicator between the orchestra and the audience. And it's I don't know whether, like it, hate it, whatever, the public face of the Boston Pops is what makes the Boston Pops able to do what it does. I mean, I'm kind of a New Englander anyway. I'm from upstate New York. My dad is from Connecticut. He went to Northeastern. When I first grew up, my first big city experience was going to Boston, not going to New York, even though we lived closer to New York. So it's been a pretty easy, this is always the way I thought the country should be. The people of Boston in this area, the incredible diversity you find in these parts, the fact that you can drive out of this city about a half hour in any direction and come into incredible natural beauty. I've always been one of those people, my best way to recharge is to get away from people, because I spend my entire life performing for people. And I have a cabin up on the coast of Maine and love to get down to the Cape, especially in the non-crowded times. Anytime except in the summer. I was on the Cape in January last year. It was great. When I was appointed in February of '95, I had a great conversation, private dinner with John Williams. We were staying at the same hotel, and he was kind of talking me through whatever wisdom he could impart. He basically said, well, mostly you're on your own, kid. But he did say a very smart thing. He said, understand that this institution is bigger than any of us individually. Don't worry about trying to, impart your stamp on the institution. That will just come in time through dint of your personality and what musical choices you make. And instead, realize that if you are perceived as somebody who really cares about the institution and is dedicated to its care and nurturing, the people of Boston will embrace you. And I hope that's the case. I've really tried for that to be the case. But I think no matter what, I think it's a great position to be in. And as long as I still feel that I have something to offer it, and hopefully the people around here feel that I have something to offer it as well, then this is the place to be.